Okay, we've got mostly everybody coming in, a few people filtering in. But Gary, you can go ahead.
Hey,
You ready for me? Oh, go ahead.
Happy Aloha Friday, everybody. Happy Aloha Friday, and thank you for joining us for Manufacturing Day 2020. I'm Gary Yoshioka of Diamond Bakery and Board President of the Hawaii Food Manufacturers Association, and I'm pleased to welcome you and be your host today. Manufacturing Day is a celebration of the 12 million talented men and women who work in the manufacturing industry nationwide. In the state of Hawaii, manufacturing is a $1.87 billion industry, employing over 14,000 Hawaii residents. Today's event is presented in partnership with the Hawaii Technology Development Corp, Innovate Hawaii, and the Chamber of Commerce Hawaii. To get everyone in the spirit today, you should have received our Manufacturing Day virtual background, which I do not have because I have an inferior computer. So if you haven't already, now is the time to turn on your background. And I have a couple of housekeeping items. For all of our attendees, please join the meeting in listen-only mode and keep your microphones on mute. And we do have some control over that. Today, we are pleased to be bringing you 2 live virtual tours and interviews with founders of 2 great local Hawaii manufacturers. First up, Maui Brewing Company, and then Kamado Composites. Q&A will be after both tours are finished, but please feel free to submit questions by clicking on the chat button on the bottom of your toolbar. And for those of you joining by phone, you can email your questions to nicole@htdc.org. That's nicole@htdc.org. Now at this time, I'd like to recognize our special guests, and we have many of them. We're pleased to have several honored leaders of our government joining us for today's virtual event. So joining us today are Senate President Ron Kouchi, Senate Majority Leader Kalani English, Senator Glenn Wakai, Senator Kai Kahele, Senator Drew Kanuha, Senator Donna Kim, Vice Speaker Mark Nakashima, Representative Ty Cullen, Representative Troy Hashimoto, Representative Scott Matayoshi, Representative Val Okimoto, Representative Amy Peruso, Representative Jimmy Tokioka, and Representative Ryan Yamane. And finally, from Maui, Mayor Michael Victorino. Thank you all for joining us today and for your support of our local manufacturers. We really appreciate that. To kick off our program today, it is my honor to introduce a special video message from Governor David Ige, who has been supportive of small businesses and manufacturers and who has graciously issued a proclamation, as he has in the past, proclaiming today as National Manufacturing Day in Hawaii. Let me show you the proclamation. This proclamation asks the citizens of the Aloha State to join in recognizing the many contributions of the state's manufacturers to our community and economy, and to learn about the industry and its many career opportunities, which you all are doing so today. So thank you. We'd also like to share a message all the way from Washington, D.C. from Jay Timmons, President and CEO of the National Association of Manufacturers and Chairman of the Board of the Manufacturing Institute. The Chamber is the exclusive NAM representative in Hawaii.
Aloha. The pandemic has forced all of us to change how we live, how we work, and how we do business. The manufacturing industry in Hawaii has likewise changed during the past year, but it remains a billion-dollar industry and employs thousands of Hawaii residents. Local businesses have shown their resilience and perseverance as they look to create new products to fulfill our community's needs. From beer to hand sanitizer, or outrigger canoes to face shields, Maui Brewing Company and Kamanu Composites, the 2 companies highlighted today, have creatively adapted to the pandemic. I want to thank co-sponsors Hawaii Technology Development Corporation, Innovate Hawaii, and the Chamber of Commerce Hawaii for supporting small to medium-sized manufacturers and pre-manufacturers. On behalf of the state of Hawaii, I'm proud to proclaim October 2nd, 2020 as Manufacturing Day here in Hawaii.
Well, hi everyone. It's great to have a chance to talk with you today about Manufacturing Day and the events that are planned for this whole month, because they highlight the value of our industry and they also correct common misconceptions. Now, most people don't know what it's like to work in modern manufacturing, and the skills gap persists because of that outdated perception of manufacturing that so many Americans still cling to. That's why we need to show young people and their parents and their teachers that our industry is high tech and high skill. Young people need to see manufacturing careers as rewarding and secure, and they need to know the possibilities that manufacturing offers, giving them the flexibility to be as hands-on or as behind the scenes as they choose to be. And with all that manufacturers are doing right now to save lives and to keep our economy strong, well, we've got an even more inspirational story to tell. So I want to thank you. Thank you for your support of MFG Day and for your continued work this month to strengthen the perception of our industry. There are millions of manufacturing jobs waiting for the right people. And that's why the NAM, along with the Manufacturing Institute and our association partners, come together to make MFG Day, or Manufacturing Month, a tremendous success. Because together, we can tell the country, creators wanted. Thank you for all you do to help spread that message.
Great. Thank you, Governor David Ige and Jay Timmons, for the messages. At this time, it gives me great pleasure to ask Sherry Menor McNamara, President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce Hawaii, and a great partner of HTDC Innovate Hawaii and HFMA, to say a few words. Sherry?
Well, aloha and good morning, everyone. Great to see everyone's faces. Wish we could be in person, obviously, but who would have thought a Manufacturing Day would go virtual? We're definitely excited. This is a great turnout that we have, and mahalo to all the legislators for being here today as well. As you know, Manufacturing Hawaii initiative was launched a few years ago, and it was in partnership with HTDC and Innovate Hawaii, a partnership that we truly value and embrace and look forward to doing continued good work with them. And we launched the initiative in an effort to support local as well as to support the Hawaii brand and promote the Hawaii brand, which led us to Hawaii on the Hill. And of course, couldn't do Hawaii on the Hill this year, but we'll definitely return to the Hill, bigger, bolder, and better. So we look forward to working with all of you. And before I sign off, I just want to thank the legislators for supporting the manufacturing industry in Hawaii through grant programs, as well as for your engagement. Truly appreciate it, because while we look for diversification, we believe that manufacturing has huge potential in growing our industry base here. So mahalo to all of you and enjoy the Manufacturing Day today.
Terrific. Thank you, Sherry, for joining us today. We have another special guest who I'd like to recognize, and that's Senator Gil Keith Agaran. So thank you for joining us, Senator. Next to say a few words is Wayne Inoue, Center Director of Innovate Hawaii. Wayne?
So, aloha everyone, welcome. Welcome to Hawaii's Manufacturing Day 2020. Wanted to say thank you again to our state legislators, our county mayors and councilmen for joining us this morning. Thanks to your continuous support for supporting Hawaii's Manufacturing MAP grant and our SBIR grant, which will help grow the industry for the state of Hawaii. You know, manufacturing is such a vital piece of Hawaii's economy, and HTDC is pushing to help grow the industry to provide bigger economic impact for the state of Hawaii. So thank you again for all your support. Also wanted to welcome Hawaii's DOE high school teachers and career counselors for joining us this morning. HTDC has been working with them to expose Hawaii's manufacturers to our junior and senior students so that they would one day be able to lead us in advanced manufacturing and Industry 4.0. So thank you again for joining us this morning. So for all of you, thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed today's Manufacturing Day 2020 event. Thanks, Gary. Back.
Thank you, Wayne. That's fantastic that we have people from the DOE. We need that pipeline of smart young people to help our industry. So now we're going to move to the two main events, our virtual tours and interviews. Today we are featuring two companies. Both had to drastically adjust their operations due to the coronavirus pandemic and shift toward making PPE. Both companies have recently been awarded innovation grants for PPE supply chain manufacturers. As a reminder, Q&A will be at the end of both sessions, so please feel free to submit any questions into the chat box or email Nicole. So first up is Garrett Marrero, owner and founder of Maui Brewing Company.
How's it? Aloha, everybody. Thank you for selecting me to be part of the Manufacturing Day. You know, I've always believed very strongly that manufacturing needs to be a focus here in Hawaii to help to diversify the economy. And I think we've all known it for years that diversification was necessary. And I think the pandemic certainly brought that even to the forefront of all discussions. So, you know, thank you to all the legislators who are on this call, to the state, the governor, Mayor Mike, you know, everyone who supported us along the way. We didn't make it these last 15 years by ourselves, and you were all a large part of that. You know, I think we're going to start on a tour, kind of show you what you would see if you were here visiting me. I'd love to buy you a beer afterwards. That'll have to hold off to another time. But like I said, any questions, just jot them down, throw them in the chat room, and we'll make sure we hit those afterwards. So let's jump right in. I'm standing here in the lobby of Maui Brewing Company in Kihei. This is our host stand that you'd normally see for a bustling restaurant. Right now, a little slower than normal. But when you come in, you get greeted, of course. It's a big aloha. And if you're here for a tour, you're going to first come into the tasting room, which we're entering now. The tasting room is where we start and finish all of our tours. You can see even some adaptations here with screens and such in order to help with the spread of coronavirus. So the tasting room has 36 beers on tap. We really look at the tasting room, most certainly not as a bar, but it's really a great experience for visitors, both residents and tourists alike, but visitors to Maui Brewing, to taste what we make here. You know, you taste so much with your eyes when you're scrolling through Instagram or even seeing a plate of food pass by. There's nothing like tasting, and that helps to really find the beer you love, so that we hope when you go to the store or when they go home to maybe the mainland, they're able to remember that beer from the tasting room and pick that up on the shelves. So we have, like I said, 36 beers on tap, all of our distilled spirits, as well as our sodas and cocktails. We get some more safety gear on here real quick. We're gonna step into the brewery area itself. Today is a little slower production day, so it's not gonna be as loud as normal. I do have a headset, so we should be able to hear pretty well. Yeah, we're gonna get going. I'll flip around the camera so you'll be able to see more, and I'll talk through and you might see me point, but I'll look forward to flipping back around in a sec. All right, and actually that camera, I forgot my iPhone's dying, so we'll have to stay on this camera. We'll just do it this way. So here we are, we're in the production facility. In total, this facility is about 82,000 square feet. When we first started, it was about 47,000, but we expanded a couple years ago in order to give us more room to produce more beverage, as well as the diversification of our beverage line as well. This needed more room. So over here, we've got our distillery. You'll see it behind me here. So this is where we actually make sanitizer. So sanitizer comes from alcohol. We have to make a very high proof alcohol in order to make the sanitizer. Roughly 95% alcohol by volume, whereas compared to our beer, Bikini Blonde Lager, our #1 seller, is a little under 5% alcohol. So it gives you an idea of the scale. So this is our distilling operation here. for Kupu spirits. It's Kupu spirits. But that all also starts here on the brew house. So the brew house is where we actually take grain, like malted barley especially, and we convert that into sugars through the brewing process. So essentially what happens is we take spent grain, or sorry, malted barley that's been milled, and we put it into the lauter tun here with hot water. And that essentially cooks like a porridge, separates the liquids from the solids. We move into the kettle. The kettle's where we boil that liquid. And then over here is our whirlpool. And the whirlpool is where we spin that liquid that we've created very quickly in order to separate the solids from the liquid. I know it sounds very quick, but we're actually pretty damn efficient over here. Over the 15 years we've been brewing, we've of course continually evolved our processes to do it better. It doesn't go that quickly. It's roughly, in a good day, we can get about 6 batches through, which is a pretty high number in one day. We do have some automation upgrades coming in that will allow us to put through about 8 batches in a day. And that will definitely decrease not only our labor per unit, but also increase the entire efficiency of flow. So we turn out about 50 barrels of beer at a time. 1 barrel is 31 gallons. I'll admit it, I did a keg stand in college once or twice. Those kegs, those big kegs, those are called half barrels. So to give an idea of the volume, 1 barrel is 2 of those kegs. So for each turn of this brew house, we run about 50 barrels or 100 kegs worth of beer. So it's quite a lot. By comparison, we used to brew 7 barrels a time. So you can see this tank for scale, very small tank, right? So this was what we had back in Kahana. And nowadays, this is considered kind of a medium tank, and then we have bigger ones outside. So thanks to you and thanks to the supporters here in Hawaii, our craft beer drinkers, both here and abroad, Maui Brewing Company has been able to grow into the state's largest independently owned and authentic local craft brewer. This is our cellar, indoor cellar, I should say. So what happens here is after the brew house is finished making the wort, we come into the fermentation cellar. You can see the conical bottoms. That makes an impact on the way the beer is fermented because we want the yeast to be able to settle down into the cone when it's done doing its job. And then we rack the beer off the top of that yeast bed. That's the first step in clarification or filtration. But indoor cellar is about 1,500 barrels of fermentation, maybe 1,200 barrels of fermentation. And we have tanks ranging everywhere from 25 barrels all the way up to 250 barrels. Anybody in manufacturing knows that quality and quality consistency, so QA and also quality control QC, very important. This is our lab here. This is one piece of advice if you're building a production facility, especially in food and beverage, make the lab twice as big as you think you need, because we've filled it up with all kinds of equipment. This is a piece of equipment that's been in the media a lot lately. This is real-time PCR. We use this for beer spoiler checks, so we can have those control points along the process to make sure we don't have anything that is going to spoil the beer. And when I say spoil, it's never going to make you sick. Beer is actually the best beverage you could ever drink for many reasons, but also it cannot make you sick. Of course, drinking too much, maybe a little the next day slows, right? We also have things like a DMA, this is a density meter. This one's specifically geared towards measuring alcohol, calories, and extract. We are upgrading this as part of the grant we received, and I'll continually thank you all for that later when we talk more. But this is something that'll be upgraded to be able to more accurately read the higher proof spirits, which are necessary, of course, for ensuring the proper percentage of alcohol. This is a spectrophotometer, uses wavelengths of light and reagents in order to separate and tell us what everything is. There's actually some action happening over here on the shaker table. I honestly don't know what they're doing, but they're smarter than I am. So that's the lab. And back out into production space. You can see one of our production calendars here. Our team is very organized. And this is the indoor cellar, the back end, what we call the bright beer tank. So this is finished beer. These 4 tanks behind me hold about 1,000 barrels of beer, or 14,000 cases of beer. And that's 24 packs a case of 12 ounce. So really enough for a manufacturing day party, I think. All right. Say hi, team. So our team, Kim, our brewmaster, Gina, brewer and assistant distiller, and then Mike, brewer. So, all right. So we're outside. I want to show you the big tanks. Can barely get them all in. Let's see, we'll go that way. Big tanks. These are 250 barrel net capacity tanks. The reason I say net is because we usually measure in what comes out of the tank, not how much it'll hold. It actually holds about 330 barrels of beer. The reason that number is so significant to us in our history is that in our entire first year of brewing back in 2005, we produced just 320 barrels. So less beer than would fit in just one of these tanks was year one. Year two, it was about 2 of them. Year three, it was 3 of them. Now, I got 18 of them. And during COVID, granted, they're not all full, but pre-COVID, they were full all the time. So we're looking forward to reigniting Hawaii's economy and getting tourism back so we can fill these things back up. Let's see. Let me show you another piece of equipment we're pretty stoked on. This is a joint venture called Origin Coffee Maui. This is Hawaii's largest coffee pot. We make cold brew coffee on this exclusively. This is made for putting into cans and kegs, and we have our roastery down the way as well, but the Wi-Fi is not so good over there, so I'm gonna stay on this side. And everybody can hear me okay? Just wanna make sure before I move too far. All right. Here we are, looks like we're getting ready to do some canning. And canning line behind us where they're gonna be running off a bunch of, it looks like acai hard seltzer today. Our canning line runs at about 380 cans per minute. That is the fastest canning line independent in the state. Of course, Coca-Cola, I think, does run faster than us. But it is about 15-fold higher than what we used to run in our Lahaina facility. So instead of a case a minute, we're running about 16 cases a minute. That's kind of it for the tour as far as the quick and dirty, if you will. That'll leave time for our friends to do their tour and then to leave for questions as well. So I think with that, I'll go ahead and turn it back over.
Hey, Garrett, what we wanted to do was talk a little bit and ask you some questions.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Let me know when you're in and you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm in the office, and so a little cooler in here, plus quieter.
Terrific. And that was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Your growth and success is amazingly impressive. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, thank you.
You alluded to a number of these questions during the course of your conversation during the tour, but I'd like to ask you some specific things. And the first one is, relative to the fact that, manufacturing is an important part of Hawaii, and you're sort of in both camps where you're a manufacturer, but you also cater to not only local residents, but visitors and consumers alike. So can you share with us the importance of manufacturing to Hawaii from your perspective?
Yeah, I would say it's extremely important. I think, there's multiple ways to look at it. One, at the outset is really the brand that is Hawaii. And I will tell you, our beer is largely popular across the world. And some of that has to do with the simple fact that it says Maui on the side of the can. So I do think it's really important for us to really make sure that we are in control of that brand as a state. And I personally don't think we do enough to protect our state. I think there's a lot of profiteering off of the Hawaiian names without actually doing any sort of direct contribution to the state. So when we allow less than authentic products to be sold using our brands, I think we're doing a disservice to our state. So that's certainly something that I believe from the protection side needs to be done. And of course, I'm always offer my services to work with you on that. I think secondarily though, we were talking about it the other day, that I think there's a misconception that, let's say, as a brewer, We have beer, and we can sell all over the world, so we should be relatively insulated. But us making beer it doesn't separate us from others. I mean, we're down at least 60% year to date, across the board, because we don't have the residents drinking as much of our beer. We don't have the tourists certainly here. But then also people concerned with money, right? Of course, there's not enough money out there to support the local products. So I think, I guess that's a long way of saying incentivizing local purchase or driving consumer preference for local is also important. But we all know manufacturing here costs more. So I'm not asking for subsidies. I'm not asking for anything like that. I think there are smart ways that we can make that happen, but it does start first with protecting the Hawaii names.
I think those are great points, Garrett. When you think about, it's not just manufacturing in Hawaii, which brings us the authenticity of the brand, but then it is communicating that authenticity as well. So, I think all of us in the industry really believe in that.
Manufacturing jobs are, family level wages, insurance benefits, retirement pay. We want our team to be here and retire with us because we want them to be well taken care of and set up for success long term. So, I think we support breweries like us or manufacturers like us, and that trickles down all the way through. Our beer doesn't get to the store without getting the tires on the truck changed, right? So tell me what piece of the world isn't impacted by the manufacturing? Everything HR, banking, truck drivers, tires, mechanics, you name it, refrigeration technicians, it goes through everything. It's one of the few industries that can say that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I can feel the passion you have for your people, your company, as well as the people that make up a part of the Hawaii economy. And I also know that you believe in making investments in sustainability. What has that meant for Maui Brewing Company during the pandemic when you think about sustainability and how it affects your business and how it fits in with our Hawaiian culture?
Sure. Well, I think first and foremost, I think it's doing things the right way for the right reasons, right? I just imagine if we had a plant that was just billowing out smoke and what that would look like, not only from, could we be proud of that, but would the community be proud of that? And for us, the way we produce our energy here, we actually produce right now during COVID, sometimes over 100% of our energy. And that's because we've installed roughly 1.2 megawatts of solar on our facility, along with approximately 3.5 megawatt hours of battery storage, and we're backed up by dual 300 kW biodiesel, of course, generators. So we can actually operate here as an island, and it's something that we did as an island on an island, I guess. It's something that we did to insulate ourselves from things like hurricanes and power surges from an aging utility grid. But also to be a resource for the community and for the people that supported us in a time of need, because we all know at some point there will be a hurricane, at some point there'll be another natural disaster that, we're called upon for support. And we are able to do canned drinking water, let's say, during not a pandemic, but like a natural disaster, and we can get that out to the community because we can operate independent from a grid that might be down. We can have our coolers on to refrigerate food and to help with others, here in the island that, whether it be food distribution companies or fish wholesalers or otherwise. And we can, of course, provide, a haven when things aren't going so well out in the community. So our lights will be on, put it that way.
Yeah.
So Mike, we're always here to help,
Yeah, it's terrific. It's interesting how you've taken a holistic approach to sustainability. It sounds like you've studied decarbonization and trying to really help your business help the environment. So that's really impressive.
Our goal is to have to leave better than we found, right? And so not only producing our energy here, but we recapture our CO2 from fermentation. It naturally occurs. So we capture that, liquefy it, and store it in a tank in order to use that in our processes. We do still have to buy CO2 from a third party that brings it over from Oahu, but we are working on an initiative with some new technology that pulls the CO2 out of the air. This quite literally means that the air around the brewery will be cleaner than anywhere else in the county, I believe, because we're sucking the CO2 out from the air. So that's a really interesting concept that would then be able to help us be even more independent from others. But it is important to take care of the world. I think we've seen climate change. I'm a huge believer in sustainability. You know, and when the governor signed the proclamation to go sustainable energy by 2045, 100%, you know, we took that as, okay, we're going to do that and we're going to do it faster. And we wanted to prove that it could be done. We spent a little over $9 million on our solar plus battery plus. But during COVID, it's saving us about $60,000 a month in energy that we would normally be spending. So, you know, we were very glad that we made that investment, albeit those loan payments hurt right now.
That's excellent. You know, I can appreciate, you know, sort of the underlying approach you take to your business, which sounds very, you know, values oriented, very strategic, but also is grounded in great financial analysis and justification. So that's outstanding, Garrett.
Yep.
I want to shift back a little bit to what we've all been experiencing for the last few months, and talk a little bit about, you know, how the coronavirus, you know, and the related shutdowns, which, you know, were necessary, has unfortunately crippled many businesses in Hawaii. How did the Maui Brewing Company adapt to the new economic challenges that you know, from your business's perspective? Because you know, you certainly showed us some of that directly, but I'm interested to get your thoughts on how you know, evaluated the situation once we knew we were in a crisis, and then how did you adapt?
Sure. You know, well, and like I said, we're not immune. I think many people have heard of alcohol sales are up across the country. And although that is true in package form, they're not up anywhere near the amount that draft is down, right? You need people sitting at a bar, restaurant, drinking a pint in order to pull through that. So we're, like I said, we're down close to 60% on the brewery side, but the restaurant division's down almost 90% on an average, where Waikiki's down 100% because we've been closed consistently. Kailua hurts even more because it's been closed twice. You know, and then over here, of course, we talked about, you know, the West Side versus others. So we're certainly not immune. So we saw very quickly, it wasn't so much let's back up. We all thought this is a flatten the curve, couple of months max. There's no way this thing goes past June, right? So we didn't really look in terms of pivoting for a economic gain or for any sort of worry there. We do have sound financial practices. We have reserves. We've spent building those for a long time so that we would be able to weather this storm or a storm. No way did we see pandemic, but we certainly saw something, recession at least on the horizon. So we were well prepared for that. But thinking that it was going to be short term, it was more about how do we help, right? So the first thing we did is, hey, we can make sanitizer. I hear nobody can get it. Let's get it, and let's get it out to all the first responders. So we made sure that the ambulance services, law enforcement officers, nonprofit healthcare systems, anybody who needed it could get that sanitizer. You know, even under some challenges, we still continued to make that sanitizer. And that was from the day that it became legal for a brewery distillery to offer hand sanitizer, we had that out there. It's something we've done forever internally because we have to sanitize everything that we use. So we already had the tools in place to do it, albeit small scale. Now we've scaled that up because we see a long-term demand for sanitizer, even if that is security theater in some regards. There's a lot of sanitizer being sprayed on surfaces multiple times an hour. Our restaurant processes include that. I don't know about you, but I can't walk by a bottle of sanitizer without sanitizing my hands. So I even know how much I'm consuming nowadays. But that was the biggest pivot we did was, you know, push to manufacture sanitizer. I've got a great partnership with our friends at Maui Soda, with the Nobriga family, where we make the sanitizer in bulk. We send it over to Buddy Guys for bottling into 1 gallon jugs, as well as 16 ounce and 32 ounce bottles. So, you know, with the grant, that's going to help us not only make that much more efficient, but also offer different like spray bottle type and fill faster on our small bottles here, so we can have a lot more efficiency. But also lower our price. I mean, my early estimates, I think, have our price coming down by about 30% because of that. So our hope is that those that can't maybe afford sanitizer at one price will be able to get us from get it at another. In our sorry, I got a call come through through our network that we're putting into place. I'm proud to say that we'll also be offering a discount program, substantial discount both to state and nonprofits as well because of this program. So I never wanted to get into PPE to make money. It was only to help, and I think that's going to continue.
Yeah. To that point, you know that you mentioned that being recently awarded the innovation grant for PPE supply chain manufacturers, which is one of the programs, you know, that our state has supported. You talked a little bit about it already, but can you share a little bit more how you use the grant in terms of, you know, what does it mean for your company? It sounds like it allowed you to expand, but was it specific kinds of things that you invested the grant monies in? Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. First, I want to thank the state of Hawaii, of course, our governor for working on this program, also HTDC, and then our distinguished members of the legislature, both the senators and the representatives here for that support. Without it, it starts to become a situation that do we want to continue to do this because it really doesn't pay a lot of bills on its own in its current form, or do we kind of just defer to the Purells of the world, if you will. But this grant will allow us to make this process far, far more efficient. Our distillery is a small operation, so it's been hand bottle, hand label, transfer by hose with gravity, a lot of really inefficient things. And the reason we can't use a lot of the brewery equipment is beer is not flammable. So to run spirits, let's say through a pump, if we did that on the beer side, we could ignite that spirit and combust, and no one wants to hear that. So, this allows us to invest in the proper equipment to transfer fluids more efficiently, to store fluids more efficiently. For example, right now we bring in totes, which bring in 22 totes of plastic at a time, where now we're going to be able to bring in a bulk storage tank so that when our spirits come in bulk, it pumps into a tank that is fire rated and stored outside, so it's safer. That's just one of the safety investments we're making. We're getting a small bottling line as part of this, which will allow us to fill multiple size bottles and label, and then also batch and date code these bottles, so we'll know from a sanitizer perspective if we get a complaint or we have something in the store, we can pull a batch number, take a test, and we can of course properly follow the any sort of recall procedures if that was necessary, which we don't expect because we're also investing in quality equipment to give us precise measurements of what we've made before it even goes to bottle. And that's some of the things, like I mentioned earlier, the DMA and alcoholyzer.
Yeah, that's safety and quality are fundamental to any product, whether it's a food or something that's for consumers. So it's a fundamental application of support monies like that. So that's a great story. Yeah, I want to ask you a couple last questions if you don't mind.
Sure. Of course.
One is you talked about your gratefulness for the PPE grant, and certainly many companies within the food industry, manufacturers, other manufacturers have benefited from the Manufacturing Assistance Program grant that's been on for the last couple of years. Diamond Bakery has, so we're very grateful in the same way. But can you talk a little bit more about how has the MAP program grant helped your company? Absolutely.
I think that program has been a godsend to us, and I still think that's putting it lightly. It's allowed us to scale significantly over the years, and I actually have a little bit of chills thinking about that, because there have been times where if only we could spend a little bit more money and get this, we'd be that much more efficient or that much safer, or hey, we can get into this new area and hire this many new people. So really what the MAP program has done is allowed us to leverage our dollars to have really a multiplier effect on our investments. So if we were going to buy, I think one of our awards was for even just kegs, buying enough kegs to then be able to get that beer out the door to our wholesaler and then to the retailer to serve at a restaurant or bar. You know, that was tremendous. And, you know, when I think about that too, is us getting kegs to fill with more beer to get to a bar on its own ignores that whole, like I said, the wholesaler tier, the guy who has to drive the truck over here to pick it up, the guy who maintains that truck, right? The tires, like I said earlier. Then it goes to the warehouse, where the warehouse guys have jobs to do to get it organized so that then the other set of drivers can get it to the bar, right? So all the way through, and then the salesmen that work for the wholesaler to get out there and sell that beer, right? So you look at how many people are impacted by that one keg of beer, and I think it's tremendous. Other things were efficiency upgrades, like a palletizer, where we were able to, instead of hand stack cases, and you got to remember we do about 5,000 cases a day. You can imagine the lower back issues that some people would have. So we put in a piece of equipment that does that, and we didn't let anyone go. We didn't replace those 3 guys stacking beer. They moved into the entire new shift. So now they were able to, instead of just be box handlers, now they're actually can line operators, and they run a second shift of canning. Normally during COVID, we only still have the 1 shift, but normal times. So you can see how we've leveraged those for not only safety, but efficiency. And it is a tremendous program that I think there's no limit to the support that it should get.
Well said, Garrett. I think everybody who's benefited from it would echo those comments of appreciation. So thank you for sharing that. You know, in the minute or two that we have left, you know, since we have, sounds like we have some people in education, we have folks from across the spectrum within the economy. The pandemic is, what advice would you have for new manufacturers?
New manufacturers, certainly, you know, I think you need to know absolutely everything you can about the subject before you get into it. And what I mean by that is it's not as easy as making something. It's, you know, you have to research what goes into even, you know, the goods that go into making your product. So if it's a value add product, for example, like beer, you need to understand water, malted barley, hops, yeast. Well, what are the control points I need? How do I ensure that what I make is going to be good? How do I duplicate that? So how do I have consistency? The QA process is substantial. Understand the labor that's involved in it. That's really important because that's going to be probably one of the highest percentage of your costs. Insurance requirements. Learn either have a lawyer, but certainly learn on your own how to read a lease. Because oftentimes we've seen leases be the end to businesses. Beyond that, you know, look at then the sales side of the equation and make sure you know how to get your product from your warehouse to the either retailer, or if you're direct on an e-com side, make sure you have that whole chain in place. Do not expect others to do it for you. This is your business, your baby, your dream, and it will consume your entire life. If you're going to be successful, that's what it takes.
Awesome. I love that. It's a real business.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I think I remember a movie, Boiler Room, I think it was, where Ben Affleck says, you know, if you ask essentially something to the long lines of, you know, if you're thinking about how much vacation time you get first year, this isn't for you, you know, and, you know, your time comes later if you put in the time now, is what I would say.
Yeah, but I can tell you enjoy it. So, so take that. Everybody, you know, Garrett, you know, loves what he does, and I can tell, and I think we all can tell. So thank you so much for sharing that, Garrett. Lots of great
Anytime.
advice. You know, have a great day, and thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Now I would like to introduce Hazel Gates, co-founder and partner at Kamado Composites. Hey, Keizo.
Hi.
Keizo, how you doing?
Good, very good.
Hey, terrific. Hey, let's do you know, let's have a little conversation, if you don't mind, first before you take us on your tour.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about Komodo Composites?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, first, you know, I wanted to tell our story first because, I mean, for one, Garrett's operation, I was just watching that, and that was incredible and so impressive. And, you know, here I am. I was going to share with you guys our favorite tool, the sanding block. But so I thought I would tell my story first. You know, we're a very small business. We've been building canoes since 2007. You know, we've been on the side of the sport that is focused on these OC1s or one-person canoes. And the story was that me and two friends, we grew up paddling at canoe clubs and really just loved it and kind of had this obsession with this idea. We would go to practice every day. Before practice, we'd go to my house and talk about how we were going to build canoes, after college or one day, just because we looked around and said, hey, a canoe costs $3,000. That's amazing. Like, I think we can make a life out of that. So we had this kind of neat little story. We all went separate directions to study something different. My partner, Luke, studied business, ended up with a degree in history, but that's okay, it works. And my other partner did boat fabrication. I went and got an engineering degree. And then we came back in 2007 and, I was living in their living room and my partner, Luke, actually rode his bike up and looked at an empty warehouse and kind of just signed the lease, not knowing exactly what we were going to do or how we were going to do it. And, now here we are in this Quonset hut 13 years later and, still at it. So that's kind of the early story. We've been more or less building one canoe a day since then, and kind of at the core, one, I really like to build things. And two, we're very much attached to keeping this industry, canoes, especially in Hawaii, it's at the most basic level, it's Hawaiian sport. And for canoes, if we were to kind of stop doing this, there would be very little in terms of the modern outrigger canoe being built in Hawaii. And, that's one reason we've been, we've kind of continued on through everything. So yeah, that's kind of our brief little background.
That's terrific, Keizo. Canoe paddling is obviously woven into the fabric of our, culture here in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And you talked about, perpetuating that. Can I steer you into a little bit more into manufacturing and maybe talk to us about, why you think that manufacturing is an important industry in Hawaii? Because you're making these things, just like Garrett's, making his products. You're manufacturing these canoes. So can you talk about, why it's an important industry in Hawaii?
I've thought about this a lot, and there's really like so many different sides to it. At the most, kind of at a personal level, which is a lot of the reason for, again, like us continuing to do this comes from these personal desires of growing up and seeing all these cool things happen in the world and wanting to, I went to school to do engineering and always liked building things and wanted to continue that. And I personally feel like there's a lot of people that just like creating things with their hands, whether it's houses or beer or food or, so many different things. At the most basic level, like creating something is the simplest and most straightforward way to create value in the world. And manufacturing is that. The other side of it is, even I'm flashing back to writing reports in high school, and I wrote a report in this is probably the year 2000, and kind of talking about the tech industry and tourism and how I kind of looked around and even at that time, like a lot of my friends, we would go up to college and people would stay on the mainland just because they didn't see the right opportunity coming back to Hawaii, and that's like, it's frustrating to me. It's like, I love Hawaii and so do all my friends. We want to be here. And so part of manufacturing is, in the way I see it, is it's like creating those opportunities that young people can come back to. And another brief little story, we've had a lot of young people come to us and ask for summer jobs and whatnot. And, most recent example, we have this young kid, Jack. He worked for 2 summers. He got into MIT this past year, and now he's doing MIT from home. And it's like, I want to create the place that, these young, smart people can come back to one day, maybe not Jack necessarily, but in general, creating industry that is exciting. And that's kind of why I like to do it, what I'm passionate about. On the other hand, I mean, I'll keep talking for a little bit. You
Yeah,
guys,
go ahead, keep going.
You know, it builds resilience in the community and diversity in the economy, of course, and that's also very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing all of that. You know, the ability to say that you love living in Hawaii, and then the ability to come back sometimes doesn't always, you know, add up as easily as you'd like you alluded to. But I think it's impressive that you created your own opportunity, and I think that's what we need to do more of. We need to create our own opportunities. I also sense that, you know, canoes are, you know, inextricably tied to Hawaii, but they're also a global activity, a global thing to do. So it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity for your business. But you know, it can be hard sometimes. So can you talk a little bit about some of the biggest challenges you face, you know, as a Hawaii manufacturer?
There are many, you know, and kind of the obvious immediate ones that come to mind. You know, we all know we're on an island in the middle of the Pacific, and we're just far away from everything. So, you know, when we need a material, it's got to come from California or the East Coast, and that takes time and extra money, and our materials end up costing more than what they would elsewhere. So that's obviously one big step. You know, the other is again, being on an island, we're limited in land. It's not like we can just keep spreading out, and so you know, real estate's inevitably going to be expensive. And you know, we have 4,800 square feet here, and I'm sure compared to what you could get in the mainland U.S., it's easily, you know, 4 times more. So there are a lot of challenges. You know, those things combine. You know, manufacturing at scale also becomes a big problem. So you know, I think in the modern world, we're able to compete more effectively at a smaller scale, but it's still, you know, a never-ending problem and a concern. But, you know, I think Hawaii also brings a lot of advantages. You know, Garrett talked a lot about the brand of Hawaii, and that's certainly part of it. You know, someone's gonna buy an ukulele or a surfboard or an outrigger canoe from Hawaii because it's part of our culture. So, you know, there's good and bad things to it, but certainly a lot of challenges which we've faced day to day for 13 years.
Yeah, no, you know, the great thing is you've made it through, and you've learned and you've grown because of it. So that's impressive in and of itself. And, you know, I'll make a little plug here for a couple of, you know, our sponsoring organizations from the chamber and HTDC and Innovate Hawaii. You know, when you think about scaling up and how do you expand and how do you approach new technologies and apply them to your business processes and apply them to your business, you know, the organizations that are sponsoring us today, you know, are there to help us. And, you know, I know they've helped our business, and I know they're helping yours as well. So so it's good stuff. You know, it takes a partnership too. So thank you for sharing all of that. I want to shift into you know, what we've been trying to persevere through more recently with the coronavirus, and, you know, that's affected, you know, we talk about a lot about how it's affected business, but it helped you adapt, it seems like, and I think you have some great stories about how you adapted, and you know, how did you come up with the idea of producing space shields? Because, you know, that's in the face of a great need. You guys came up with that. So can you talk about how you adapted and how you got to producing face shields?
Yeah, it's I still have a hard time believing, you know, all the things that have happened this year. You know, both for us and just the world in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, specifically, you know, we you know, March 23rd, of course, we went into the stay-at-home order, and we didn't know what to do. You know, we're such a small business that if we go without cash flow if we don't push boats out the door, you know, we are struggling. And we kind of knew, okay, this goes on for 1 week, we can't pay our people. So we, you know, unfortunately, we're like, the only way to do this to survive is like we have to lay everyone off. So we laid off 17 people essentially by text because everything was very last minute, and said, hey, look, this is the situation. You know, hopefully you can collect unemployment right away, and we don't know what's going to happen. And luckily, I mean, I feel a little bit special in that as a business owner, you know, I get this hall pass to keep coming to work and, you know, trying to make sure that we have a business when we return. And, you know, I kind of was moving boats around and trying to tie up loose ends, make sure things are taken care of. But then, you know, like everyone, you're watching the news and paying attention. And one of our guys actually had the bright idea. You know, we have a couple $1,000s worth of gloves and Tyvek suits and respirators because that's what we use daily. And he was like, hey, we have all this stuff. Let's go donate it to local hospitals. And of course, it's like, okay, we have no use for that. That's a great idea. So I you know, between my partners and our people, we figured out where to take it. And, you know, dropping this stuff off, they were just so appreciative, and it kind of put in my head what kind of need there was for PPE. And, you know, kind of between discussions with my girlfriend and my partner and reading the New York Times about other people creating DIY ventilators and 3D printing face shields, at some point it clicked in my head, you know, kind of on that Friday, I was like, hey, I think I can make something. And so I went in on Saturday and threw together a bunch of scrap material we already had in the shop and kind of put it on. You guys can go watch that on our Instagram. It's pretty funny at this point, but you know, the paddling community has so many first responders and people working in the healthcare industry that there was quite a response. And you know, pretty much kind of just, I was a little bit stressed out about, okay, like now I got to make 500 of these. Like, how am I going to do this? But we just kind of went at it and figured things out. You know, it's funny. It was just kind of me and my girlfriend at the time assembling these things, and we probably tied about 150 knots, and then I realized I was gluing the plastic together at first, and I realized this doesn't work. Like so we basically scrapped all of this and started over with the new process and modified the design, and then we were able to figure out something that worked. And kind of within 2 weeks, we probably had made 1,000 or 2,000, and within 3 weeks, we hired you know, more than half of our team back, and we were producing about 1,000 a week for quite a while. And that really, financially, it kind of got us through that period of not building any canoes. You know, and yeah, we were just blown away by the response. It felt really like valuable. Like, hey, like this is, you know, we were also anxious about not being able to help. It felt really good to be able to help in some way. And that kind of continued on. We were still building them through August. And, you know, up to that point in August, we had made about 30,000. And now things are changing as we speak to kind of scale to a higher level. But in short, that's the story.
Yeah, no, it's a, you know, as you were sharing that, I was writing down words that are coming into my mind, like adversity and uncertainty. And then sounds like you had awareness and generosity, and then you had creativity, and you started making them. And I think sounds like you're the great example of rapid prototyping at its finest. So that's awesome stuff.
You know, for me, it's funny. We typically manufacture one canoe a day, and at the end of the day, it costs $5,000, and it's very low volume. So it's been like a college, you know, experience going back and trying to make something that's, you know, $4 and making as many as you can. I'm excited to kind of reapply all that we've learned back to our regular business. So it's been a really neat experience.
Yeah, actually, different kind of manufacturing process. So yeah, I bet you would learn a lot. Speaking more specifically, a little bit more specifically to the you know, this idea of making PPE, you were recently awarded an innovation grant for the PPE supply chain manufacturers. And so, can you talk a little bit, you know, about, you know, what does the grant mean to your company and to your operations now that you're, you know, you got into the production of face shields, you're going to transition back to, you know, making canoes, but talk a little bit about how the grant has made an impact for you.
Yeah, no, it's I'm still like, it's hard to believe. And first of all, I think, you know, so many of you guys, I think listening, have had a part in all of this happening. So thank you guys so much. HTDC and the state of Hawaii is throwing a lot of support behind people doing this kind of thing and local business in general. So thank you. And in the immediate, what we're trying to do is really scale up this face shield operation to about 10 times what we've been doing. So it's essentially helping us jumpstart this, get machines in place. We're in the process of hiring about I'm thinking it's gonna be about 40 or 50 people in the next 4 weeks, so that we can get there's some support from the state to produce this large quantity. So that's it's really just funding all of that, and with this new equipment and the new techniques and speeding things up, that capacity is always going to be there. Should there be ongoing needs? I really hope there isn't, to be honest, but should there be, it's always there, and we could always kind of go back to that. In terms of producing face shields. So it's massive. Sorry, I keep talking. In the long term, it's going to help create a lot of permanent jobs. I think our goal is we have another 5,000 or 6,000 extra square feet that we're setting this up in, and I hope we can kind of retain that space and make use of these machines for again, manufacturing and producing things in Hawaii.
Yeah, I absolutely, very well said. I mean, when you think about from the federal government, state government, and local city governments, if they make investments in us, what they want to see from us is economic impact. So you just shared it there, so that's awesome.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think about that a lot. It's like, we're such a small company, we haven't taken really investment outside of immediate family, and this is the biggest investment by far. And the state's not getting equity in our companies, so I kind of look at it as what do we owe, and we owe job creation and sort of sticking around for the long term to make Hawaii a better place. And it gets me fired up every time I think about it. There's so many things we can do.
I feel it. Thank you. It makes you feel the same way. That's awesome. We got, I hope you don't mind, but I want to ask if you can take us on a tour. But if you don't mind, I want to ask you one final question, and that's and I think your story in and of itself, great advice already. But can you give a little bit of advice to young folks, new manufacturers, people trying to start a new business? What kind of advice would you give us?
There's so much. I mean, at the most basic level, the one thing that kept us going is just never quit. Like, there's at least 100 times where I'm like, this is the end of our business. Like, we're shutting down this week, but I kind of sleep on it and come back the next day and just keep going. And one way or another, try and figure out a way. And other advice, I see so many people talking about starting something. It's you really just have to just try it. Like, there's just, even if you start small, like there's ways to just go for it. There's no, I mean, obviously in some cases there's things to lose, but you're better off trying and failing than not trying at all.
Never quit and try. That's brilliance there. So thank you. Very good. I wrote them down. Hey, how about showing us around? Could you do that for the next few minutes?
Yeah. So let me. We have a mask on indoors rule, so let me put that on. So.
Thank you.
I'll give you a quick. So we're in this Qantas house, it's like an airplane hangar. We've been here for since the beginning. We started with just half of the building, and then we expanded to both sides. So, now it's we basically have our production side, which I got to get it out of the sun, see what's going on. So, it's essentially about 30 feet by 80 feet long. These are our molds. I'll kind of start at the beginning of the process. So we have our material room, and we use 4 different kinds of carbon fiber, couple other, little bit of S-glass, fiberglass. That's kind of what surfboards are made out of. Some real basic numbers on the wall. That's how we cut all the kits for each part. And that's actually the machine that we're going to be using for cutting face shield screens. We'll be able to cut our materials later on. So we're excited about that. I'll go ahead and flip the camera around. So this is our bread and butter right here. This is our coil mold. And basically we build a canoe from the outside in. And, oh, sorry, there's a little gimbal in the picture. But we make these molds ourselves. So, we start with building basically one perfect canoe, and then we build the mold off of that. And we have these molds. This one in particular is from 2013. So you can get quite a few boats out of a mold. We of course try and polish it as camera troubles. Try and keep it as shiny as possible. So that's the bottom half of the mold. The top half is right here, so that's where your feet go. And we actually, again, we build from the outside in, so we paint or gel coat actually goes into the mold first. So that's one day. We spend time taping that off and creating a design, and one person has to kind of frantically paint it over a couple hours, and then it sits overnight. And we come into our layup room, which is a air-conditioned, kind of climate-controlled room where we bring the molds, and two guys will actually lay all that carbon fiber into here. It takes about 2 hours, and after that, we do a process called vacuum bagging. So essentially, we have these, I don't know if you can see that above me, there's a big tube of plastic, and the whole mold goes into that. We have a central vacuum pump, and that, of course, pulls all the air out, compacts the 3 different layers of material, and it goes into a low temp oven for roughly 5 hours. And then 2 guys in the evenings will come, and they actually put all the internals into the canoe and join the 2 halves. So, in and out of the mold, it's actually pretty quick. We're in and out in 2 days, but it comes out, and there's a lot of finish work we have to do, and it takes about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks for us to finish a canoe after that. So at any one time, we have probably 20 boats in the shop that we're working on.
Oh.
Let me see if we aren't actually building a canoe today. We're doing Monday through Thursday right now. This is I shouldn't show you our dirty room, but this is where we do all the sanding work. We actually use our face shields for eye protection from dust now, which is pretty, we actually, we find them pretty useful. Over here, we have the core materials, which these actually are cut with our CNC machine. So they're nice and accurate. That's what makes up the thickness of each canoe and gives it, its stiffness. If you were to just take a single layer of carbon fiber, it's actually like paper. It's not that stiff by itself, but once you create a sandwich, it gets very, very stiff, and kind of makes a canoe possible that's 18 pounds or so. So I walked in over to our second side, and this is where we do all the finish work here. So almost in various states of finishing. We got Austin and Honu doing finish work, and that's everything from quality control to applying the stickers to a lot of, wet sanding and buffing, and essentially making that thing as shiny and as new looking as we can. Nothing is ever totally flawless at first, but with a little time and effort, we get them finished up pretty nicely. And I'm actually walking back to where our CNC machine is. We have a team, a couple of new people training. And that's, of course, where we, it's a general purpose router that, we can design something on the computer and then go and create that, like cut that out of some material. So everything from our seats to that core material to aluminum molds. And then, of course, these face shields were created using that. And right now, we're basically running it 24/7, cutting both foam and the plastic. And again, we have 2 more of those machines coming so that we'll be able to ramp up face shield production.
So Keizo, you're using computer-aided design then to do stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm very much an advocate of CAD. I grew up using computers, and so many people think, oh, that's cheating, shape it by hand but the reality is the computer is just another tool for us to use. And the more tools you have available to you, the better your products are going to be. And like I said, that I was joking about the sanding block, but it really is one of the most valuable tools we have. So you need both. You need the craftsmanship and, of course, the engineering and knowledge to be able to use these other tools.
Before you deliver, do you test drive it? Do you guys actually go put it in the water?
We don't put it in the water, but we do actually double check that it's airtight and hopefully watertight. We do, we check the rig, we check everything as far as we can without actually putting it into the water. But we make sure it's airtight and watertight. And, being that it's an expensive item, we would care about every single one. It's something we're very passionate about. And another reason we kind of want to keep it local, because, we always used to say, for paddlers, made by paddlers, and that kind of continues on. Absolutely. So,
anything else you'd like to share, Keizo, before we sign off?
Not too much. I mean, our PP, our face shield operation is in another warehouse, but you can actually see that's a stack of foam. So we'll be going through many stacks of foam in the near future. Upstairs we have a little office with 4 stations. We've been actually, I'll give you. Are we good on time?
We're right. We got about a minute left. So
okay.
we.
Well, here's our little store. We just started making paddles in the past year, so that's something neat. And then Savannah's in the office. Sasha's from Hawaii. He's an engineering intern. Again, so many people are off from college. We want to give them the best experience possible.
Nothing like smart young people to help you out, so it's good stuff.
Yeah. Anyways, that is a mostly complete tour. If you have any other questions.
All right. Wow, that was for both Garrett and we're getting a lot of great comments on chat. Everybody's like totally psyched about seeing your guys' operations, and thank you so much, Hazel, for spending the time with us today.
Of course, thank you. I was honored to be here.
Yeah, that was great. So thank you so much, and you have a great day as well. Before we get to the Q&A, because we're just right about at that point now, I wanted to mention that in addition to today's live event, there are recorded virtual tours and company highlight videos located on the HTD website under Manufacturing Day 2020. So look at the HTD website. Some companies are also participating in a special Manufacturing Day promo code, so be sure to check out the page for special offers. The link to the website should be posted in chat, so it should come up in chat any second now. So take a look at that, and you might like some of these promo codes, so take advantage of those as well. So now I would like to open up the floor to Q&A. We're going to use the chat tool to do that. So please put all your questions in there, and Nicole and I are going to take a look and see what we have. So how are you highlighting, Nicole, for me?
It's on the agenda, Gary. I moved them to the agenda.
You did? Oh, you're so good. Thank you so much. Okay. Do we have Garrett still? Hello, Garrett. Are you on? Okay. How about Keizo?
There we go. Yeah, I'm here. I couldn't unmute. I think I was on lockout. So.
Okay. Terrific. Here's a question for you. I think it's a great to think about long term and how we set our industry up for success with great talent, going forward, and that starts with education. Mm-hmm. So, what would you say about what are the employability skills that you think teachers need to know when preparing youth that are interested in manufacturing? Like, are there certain kinds of skills or aptitudes? Are there any kind of industry certification so they can look at sort of what standards are out there? from your perspective. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
From a a high school perspective kind of thing as they're thinking about career direction.
Sure, sure. I'm a huge believer in education. I think that so much I think it's an underserved area, frankly, and I think we need to support education as much as possible. However, I do not believe that everyone needs to go to college. I think we've got plenty of doctors and lawyers and everything else, and I think that field seems to always well be primed. I'll tell you what Hawaii is missing the most are technicians, guys who can wrench on machines, who can stick two pieces of metal together cleanly. We have some great welders here, but we have too few. So few that when we have to do a big job, we have to import that labor from Washington. So I think removing the stigma behind the quote white collar, blue collar type jobs. Hell, had I known out of college or out of high school, I could probably get a $50+ an hour job doing pharmaceutical grade welding. I would have pursued welding. It might have been a different career for me. Even now, I admire these guys who can do that. And it is a well-paying job. I'll tell you, I think our bill outs are, for the mainland guys, somewhere between $75 and $100 an hour. And that's to get two pieces of stainless steel to be sanitary welded. So, you're talking about a significant loss of talent here from a technician standpoint. Servicing boilers, those have to get flown in from the insurance companies to certify them. Like I said, sanitary welding, certain programming. So automation equipment, like on running robots, we're looking at putting in a robot in our mix pack line, and we're going to have to send one of our guys to train on that because there's not programmers here to do those things. So I think it runs the gamut. It's turning a wrench all the way through getting certifications, in our case in brewing, for example. You can go to UC Davis and get a degree in brewing. You can go to Siebel and get a degree in brewing and distilling. So it really runs the gamut. There's certainly they're out there. We have looked at an internship type of situation for a long time, and unfortunately, we are considered a sin industry because we make alcohol, God forbid, because no one drinks it.
Make sanitizer now too, though.
Yeah, exactly. We make sanitizer too, which is alcohol. So not all alcohol is bad, right? I guess I jest a bit because we can't even invite some people in to be able to look at that because there's the idea that, somehow we're going to hurt them by exposing them to making alcohol. I've met many people who are in the cooking programs at Maui College who are like, oh, I didn't know brewing was so similar to, crafting an amazing meal in a kitchen, with the, nuances of flavor and so much latitude. But we can't have those younger chef contenders, if you will, come in until they're 21. So that does present a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a reality of the nature of the business. But I think what you said at the outset is key. Manufacturing is tech. Everybody likes to use that word tech as something that, maybe is in Silicon Valley or places like that. But manufacturing is tech. You're using all kinds of technical knowledge to do it, whether it's chemistry or mechanical engineering or electrical engineering, all of those
installing
things.
Equipment.
Yeah, all of computer programming for automation, all of those things exactly. Manufacturing is tech. I think Jay Timmons was saying that at the outset in his video. So, I think this is a really important question. If you don't mind, Garrett, I'm gonna flip it also to Keizo and get his perspective on this. Keizo, from your perspective, what do you think about skills that teachers need to be aware of and maybe use in preparing, students interested in manufacturing?
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of what Garrett said, kind of at all levels. And college is great, and not doing it is great too. And there's just, I feel like in this world, there's so much, the access to information is unlimited at this point. So you can really learn anything you need by going on Google. So, and how does that, education, how does that affect Hawaii? I do think exposure to building things in general is so important. I go back to my own experience, but me and my partner, we've got the chance to build a canoe in high school, and look where we are now. And we've actually one of the teachers at Iolani reached out to us and said, hey, can we build a 6-man? And they've been doing this for several years now. And some of the students have come and applied for little short summer jobs with us, and they're getting this experience of building a 6-man canoe in high school. And beyond just that, creating things with your hands, but the technology in general is coming down to a level where more and more people can afford it. You can buy a 3D printer for $300 and print whatever you draw on the computer. And just exposure to that kind of thing, and getting it into people's heads at a young age that they can, anything they can think of, they can go create. And I think that's important. And the more exposure they have to that in school, the better.
Those are great points. And when you said something earlier about just having a chance to make a canoe, you sort of made me think of what you said earlier about just trying. So maybe the teachers just try to expose their students to things that are related to manufacturing. And there's tons of businesses like the ones that are on this call right now that are happy to work with educators to try to have them try. So wow, I didn't realize you had a chance to make a canoe in high school. That's pretty cool. So
It is cool.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to keep going here because we've got a few more minutes left with questions. I'll stick with Keizo if it's okay. I wonder when you looked at your business, how did you when you first started, how did you determine the market demand or the market size of your business? And then how did you evolve with your operations as you grew, and how did things change? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Garrett actually mentioned one thing about knowing what you're getting into beforehand. And I think, one reason we started with canoes is because we had grown up around it. I fortunately, my father was a boat builder in a way, not with canoes, but he had worked with the materials, and I was somewhat familiar with it. And we, of course, had growing up seeing a little bit of it. So, and we were part of this community of canoe paddlers, which really isn't that big. So, my partners were sponsored paddlers racing every weekend. And, I had made a website in high school that was sort of centered around the paddling community. So we did have a few advantages there, but, manufacturing in general, that was the part we didn't really know what we were getting into. And every day there's a struggle. Every day we realize something, hey, wait a minute, we can do this differently. And that's going to speed things up. And this is after 10 years or 13 years, we're still learning things, something new every day. So there's no end to it.
Yeah, a constant focus. Sounds like you're just basically looking at it all the time. So very good. I can totally relate to that. Thank you for that. I want to go back to Garrett. Garrett, certainly in Hawaii, we don't grow, hops and, grain and things like that. But, I'm sure you've tried to look at, how you can approach using local ingredients in your products, like in your beer. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of your experiences there, some of the challenges, some of the things that you've seen that works?
Sure. Great question. I think since the beginning, we've been very strong supporters of agriculture. I consider myself somewhat of a foodie. I love to cook and love to go to farmers markets and, kind of create a menu, just from what I see. But, I think beer is pretty cool because it's, we think of it like wine, right? Wine is grapes, no matter what you do, it's all grapes, right? Where beer, you have malted barley, hops, yeast, and water. But the way beer is made in America and now largely around the world is you can influence that flavor using other adjuncts, as they call it, or ingredients. So in our case, we said, what better way to make real Hawaiian craft beer than to celebrate the abundance of agriculture we do have? Where you go to California or anywhere and you see what mangoes cost compared to here when they're falling off the trees. It's a big difference. So we have these highly sought after fruits like, passion fruit, orange, guava, etc. And we've tried to influence beer with that agriculture. So much so that inspired by up near Nahiku, there was a lady who makes coconut candy. One of my first trips to Hawaii years and years, over 20 years ago now, I remember getting a little pack of that coconut candy. So that was the inspiration for coconut porter, which was the world's first coconut beer. And we still make that beer very similar. We're using our own hand toasted coconut. And our process has changed, but still we toast all the coconut, not using extracts. Pineapple, so the Maui Gold, or really the Hali'i Maili Gold pineapple. Our vision for that beer, the pineapple mana wheat, was born out of losing the pineapple cannery here on Maui and facing the fact that farmers might not be able to survive if they can't sell the fruit that didn't meet the retail standards. So, but it still tasted good. It could be juiced and we could use that. So, we've really adapted around what's grown here. And we did the world's first, like I said, coconut beer, the first pineapple beer. We actually did a breadfruit beer called liquid breadfruit because beer is often referred to as liquid bread because of its maltiness and real sustenance, frankly. During the period of Lent, actually, monks in Belgium drink Doppelbock as their level of sustenance because it's such a carbohydrate-rich beverage. So, us being able to take breadfruit and showcase that to the world of what's grown here. Toasted papaya seeds bring peppercorn-like character to beverages. So we use that as a flavor component. It's really fun to experiment with that agriculture. Some challenges we have, like right now, I need citrus. Like we have a project we're working on that I would love to have local lemon and lime juice. I can't get into opening a whole commercial kitchen and all that goes with that in order to juice those fruits. I would really prefer to call up a local supplier and say, hey, I'd love fresh lime juice or fresh lemon juice. And that's something that we don't really have here. So I think as much as we might grow some things here, we don't really have a value add production facility that farmers can maybe go to and either contract with or use somewhat like a commercial kitchen to then sell that value add item. I know we're growing a ton of potatoes here on Maui. How many potatoes are we gonna go through if we can't somehow make those into French fries, for example, like IQF? These should be the types of things that not only growing, but thinking about how we get those products into the market to be utilized in an efficient way. That's the kind of connection we're missing right now.
Yeah, I think those are great points. I love the snippets of stories around innovation, collaboration, and I agree. I think we need to create a better linkage between the farmers and the food manufacturers on how to use their products. So that is an opportunity. That's great perspective. Thank you very much. We have a couple of minutes left, just about on time. But Keizo, I wanted to ask you one last thing. Is what do you wish you knew before you started your company? Anything like that? Anything you wish you knew?
What? Not really. I think if I had known what it would take to I probably wouldn't have done it. So I'm not sure what else I would add, that would convince me to do any better, or do anything differently.
Well, that's great. That's almost like saying you didn't want to know because that's what you wanted to do. So,
yeah, I mean, it's the type of thing. It's better you don't know what you're gonna have to go through, because if you know, it's you might not want to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. Boy, when you think about I think this might be our first attempt at a virtual manufacturing day in Hawaii. I could not think of two better founders of key businesses in Hawaii like Garrett and Hazel for being here and for sharing their stories. So thank you for showcasing your facilities, for sharing your stories of resilience. We appreciate Governor Ige and Jay Timmons of NAM for providing us with their welcome messages. Thank you to all the companies who provided virtual tours for the Hawaii Manufacturing Day 2020 website. Those companies are Kaikini Bikini, Kauai Cookie, Punahele Provisions, and Rango Packaging. Please go look at the website. There's some great stories there as well. I can only hope that you agree with me that we've been enriched by all the great stories on the website, as well as the stories here today. So thank you to everyone who tuned into our virtual Manufacturing Day event today. Please remember to visit the HTD website at htd.org for more Manufacturing Day content and promotional deals. Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and have a great weekend.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you, everybody.